Whether you loved it or hated it, the Obi-Wan Kenobi show was divisive. It showed a broken man and his hunt for meaning, but also muddied the waters on both the canon and the characters of Vader and Kenobi. It was more fan service than story, but what could a second season do? Welcome to Star Wars Uplink, your place for everything Star Wars gaming, the TV shows, and the movies. Let's jump in.
Just you reconsider playing that message for him.
We were very vocal in our dislike of the Kenobi show. It, for me, just didn't really have a core why and felt lacking in many ways. I would have loved to see Reva fleshed out as a character that had more meaning than just the shell of a human that they had her be. And just be like, there's so many things. This is not necessarily the core point of this video, but there are many things with Reva's characters, many things with Obi-Wan's character, and the whole premise of the Kenobi show, I think was just misguided. It was a pure cash grab in terms of, we know people have been wanting a Kenobi show. It's been talked about forever. Let's do that. But it started as a series of movies, condensed to one movie, condensed to a longer episode count. I think it was originally planning to be 24 episodes. And then that got whittled down to 12, and then that got whittled down to 6. So there was a lot of stuff behind the scenes on why Kenobi is the way that it is. I just wish it had more reason to be focused on the story of Obi-Wan, which they hinted at pieces of Obi-Wan being in this very fragile state emotionally, cutting himself off from the Force. But literally in the same scene where they're conveying that he can't use the Force, that is not connected to it, 2 seconds later, he's now back in the Force. Like, that wasn't a piece of his character.
Right.
And I feel like that is an example of the core to why Kenobi didn't work.
Yeah, they made it very small. Like, the world felt really tiny, and the characters, they just didn't feel like they followed their own true path, I'll say. It felt very much like, we just need the story to get to this point, so let's just have them do what needs to be done in the quickest time possible. While also, let's just try to have a good time. And it's like, this is very heavy, very serious things that we're talking about here. And we're having silly little chase scenes and things. And it didn't quite feel like it was, it didn't have the right time or the right punch to the gut that I feel like that really needed to convey like these emotions and the story that we wanted to see, I think.
Yeah, if you only have 6 episodes and you're going to do a limited time series, first of all, those episodes need to be longer than Obi-Wan Kenobi was. And they also need to be incredibly focused. And that has not been the case for many Star Wars shows, and it's definitely not the case for Kenobi. But there's a rumor going around. I don't personally put a whole lot of stock into it. I've seen a lot of people that I trust more say that this isn't necessarily a thing that's happening behind the scenes. But I do want to entertain the idea to theorize what an Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 2 could be, because I feel like the Star Wars shows don't give a lot of the stories that could use the time necessary. I mean, Kenobi, they gave only 6 episodes to. Acolyte was set up in a way that they would have benefited from multiple seasons, and it was intended to be multiple seasons, but they didn't punch above their weight like they needed to. So there's a couple of those things, like those are core examples. Book of Boba Fett's another one where they just did not give enough time to the character and the story that they wanted to tell, and instead made it like a weird half step towards Mandalorian Season 3. But Obi-Wan Season 2 could be quite interesting because we could really get into what I was hoping they were going to get to, which was, what does Kenobi do? He has been a well-renowned...
What's his day-to-day?
Kenobi. What's he up to? Like, we've seen hints that he's working with Qui-Gon to deepen his connection to the Force. He's also got to protect Luke without Luke realizing who he is. And I I always grew up theorizing about Obi-Wan Kenobi's story after the the actions of Order 66 and the impact that had. I always saw him as kind of this more lone cowboy. Like, what does it look like for Kenobi to be on Tatooine, a planet that doesn't have a whole lot except for this one hub of scum and villainy? What does it look like for Kenobi to be pulled away from his main mission, which is protect Luke? What does it look like for him to be distracted a little bit by the happenings on Tatooine? What does it look like for him to make efforts of making the surrounding areas a little bit safer for Luke?
Yeah.
I would love to see more of like that personal side of things, while he's like the deepening of his personal aspect, the deepening of his professional aspect of like what he needs to focus on there, and then also the Force aspect. Like, what does it look like for him to really just like sit down and connect with the massive amounts of trauma that he would be in after Order 66, where you saw many friends and allies decimated. Clones that he called brothers that are turning against all of the Jedi. What does it look like for the entire galaxy to be pushed into fascism? Like, this is a lot of the things that Kenobi would be dealing with, as well as the added responsibility of let me try to make my efforts in this mean something. What can I do to make this a little bit better?
Right. I like that. I like that idea of like, what would Obi-Wan Kenobi be doing, and how could he be making Tatooine safer for Luke? I think that there's a really good story there. Like, I think just sticking to Tatooine and showing him as a cowboy, like as like scouring the around surrounding areas and stuff like that. Like, that would be cool. And he's got to have some kind of story with the Sand People, because they're scared of him. He knows the little weird sound that he did when we first meet him and Luke, and it's like, oh yeah, they know this guy. They're like, we don't mess with this thing. So I think there's a good story there.
I think if they would have gone that direction with the first season, we would have been in a much better place. I think they really stumbled with trying to make everything around Vader and Obi-Wan. And I think it takes away from their ultimate, to me, it takes it away from their ultimate kind of face-off in A New Hope.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been much more impactful if they have, like, Obi-Wan making these waves from where he is on Tatooine, hiding below the surface, and Vader just like casually hunting for him throughout this time frame, but never ends up looking in that direction. I think it's much more impactful if they don't meet in the middle. I also don't necessarily, from many different perspectives, enjoy that fight. I know many people that do, but for me, as someone who like works in video, that was just so poorly executed. And it's kind of a shame that was the way that we got it. So I know a lot of people wanted to see that and that they really enjoyed it. But I feel like the impact of having that be the final moment takes away from the core story of what does it look like for Obi-Wan to re-find himself, to go past the trauma that he has had in his life and really dive a little bit deeper into his motivations on why he's doing the things he's doing, as well as the massive grief and weight that he has with the destruction of his brother Anakin and the rise of Darth Vader. Like, I think that would have been a much more interesting direction. And then also have him, because Star Wars is well known for starting in the middle of the story, as well as adding some added flavor in terms of things just happen.
Sure.
And they also happen without direct cause or influence. And I think it would have been fascinating to see Obi-Wan kind of get swooped away into a bigger story while he's dealing with all these things, while he's taking on this protector role, and while he's also deepening his connection to the Force.
Well, it sounds like with that, it sounds like what they did with the first season, like with the
what they tried to do.
Yeah, what they tried to do, which they did, but to varying levels of success.
Well, I think they should have just stayed on Tatooine. Tatooine is a really interesting location because there's nothing there, and I think it would have been fascinating for them to have that constraint.
Right.
And instead of really like leaning into the constraints that I think really breed interesting stories, they just decided, well, we're not going to do that.
Yeah. Throw that out the window. Let's get back into the galaxy.
So I would have loved to see the emotional beats be in this very desolate place while Luke's just vibing as a kid, and then also as Obi-Wan's trying to find himself, have this kind of self-discovery moment where he basically becomes like the lone cowboy, samurai type character on this planet, trying to keep Tatooine on the down low, while also trying to repent for his like betrayal of his brother. I think would have been fascinating.
Yeah, I think bringing up the end of the last that we see of Obi-Wan and Vader fighting off, not in the original trilogy. I think it'd be really fascinating. I don't know if it'd make a good story, but like to see him beginning to come to that acceptance of like the next time I see him, I'm going to lose. There's no winning. Like that's not what this is about anymore. Like to see him come to that realization would be really an interesting journey. I also don't know. Like I said, I don't know if that's something that we would need to see, but like I think it's a story beat that could be woven into like the series or the season that we're talking theoretically about. Like if we could continue on this path where he's getting more into his own mojo and whatnot, that would need to be something that's starting to be discussed or like kind of coming into this, because he's figuring out what his relationship is now, and like it's the end. Like it's coming, it's the morning, and then the coming to the realization of what that is, and the next time it would be the last time kind of thing.
I think that would be an interesting aspect and a different perspective than we saw in that first season. Also a continuation of some of the things that were set up in that first season. So there's a lot of things here. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, or contact uplinkpodcast.com if you're listening to this wherever you find podcasts. We'd love to hear your thoughts and theories on what could happen for an Obi-Wan Kenobi Season 2. Thanks for listening, and as always, may the Force be with you.